Good day and welcome to Xuviate Business Agility Daily, where we help leaders reimagine how work can flow. In this mini-series of videos, we are looking at the power of Kanban metrics to aid our decision-making and manage our processes. In the first video of the series, we defined the three important variables of work in progress or WIP, cycle time, and throughput or departure rate. And we also mentioned the arrival rate. I did state that you should not need to ever calculate these variables, as you can directly read them off. And I today want to show you how to do that using the Cumulative Flow Diagram, or CFD in short. I'll then also have a look at what else a CFD can tell us. So let me directly switch over to a live instance of Kanban I. So here we are now in Kanban I's revamped analytics module. And just to show you, on the left-hand side, you can choose a time range, and you can now also have different workflows combined. You can also filter further. You've got a timeline that we could zoom into. And we have got some controls for every chart on the right-hand side. But let's look at the cumulative flow diagram. What is this? A cumulative flow diagram shows us time on the x-axis, and then on the y-axis, we've got the accumulation of work items. And any date, we can see how many work items have been done from the beginning that we started to measure. And we can see how many items have passed the in-progress line. As such, it's not really usable. And I also said we can read off all our variables. So let's do that. And now we can see that we've got 6 items in progress on the y-axis. And the average time for that was 1 day, 3 days, 2 days. What we can also see is our arrival rate in green and our departure rate or throughput as the slope of the respective 2 lines. The previous one was a very easy diagram. Let's now go a bit deeper and take a typical development process as an example further on. Here we can see, we can not only see the arrival rate in general and the departure in general, but we can see that for every band or for every column in our process. And now let's look at what else we can read of a cumulative flow diagram. One thing that we often see is diverging arrival and departure rates. But what does that mean? That means, for example, at the beginning, we had a WIP of around 50 items and an average cycle time of around 17 days. And because of Little's law, if we go on and we have at the end about 120 items, our cycle time at the same time increases as well. I must say that I cheated a bit. This process is not as bad. I brought in requested stages to make it a bit more pronounced. And let's now look at another phenomenon. If we are looking at this area here, we can see that the lines are virtually flat, which would actually mean that there is virtually no throughput. We can see 0.15 items per day as throughput. If we look a bit closer, this was actually over Christmas, so it's expected. But if that is not in an expected time, you can ask questions. Another typical thing we might see on a CFD is steps, like here, which clearly shows us batching. In this case, as it's a development team, there have been deployment cycles, but we can ask questions. For example, here we can see it's 7 days in between. Here it's 21 days. And with that, also the average time became 18 days. Why? What happened there? If it is known, great. If not, we can manage it. Another phenomenon we often see are bulging bands, like in this case. Here for this, it is testing before deployment. So it might be viable that we kept it till the total end. But often it will show us that we actually have a bottleneck, especially if the bulge keeps on growing. And if we have got something like a vanishing band, that might mean there is starvation. And often they are in relation to each other. So what if we do have a quite good looking and boring CFD, like in this case, where our arrival rate and departure rate are very similar? We have really interrogated all things like steps and bulges. Now we can look at the macro picture. For example, if we're looking at these 5 months here and comparing them to the next ones, we'll see that the slope actually changed quite a bit. And now we can ask ourselves, why is that? In this case, I know that the resources were less going forward, but it might also be something else. And we might be asking ourselves if we can even squeeze down the whip to make the cycle time even shorter, or what we can do to actually increase the slope back. So the actionable tip for today is you can use a cumulative flow diagram to actively manage your process performance. In your CFD, for example, does arrival rate match departure rate? Are there bulges in any of the workflow step bands? Do any of those bands disappear? Are there, for example, long periods of flat lines? Are there stair steps? Remember that none of these are inherently bad if there are good reasons for them. And if you have a boring or stable CFD, think about how you can improve the process further by, for example, reducing WIP to reduce the cycle time, or by increasing throughput to get a steeper slope.